Florida State coming up with a big statement win, 45-24 against LSU. The wide receivers could not be kept back. 2 wide receivers go over 100 yards for the first time in 5 years for Florida State. Ooh. Keon Coleman, every bit as advertised. There's big picture stuff. LSU is panicking. Brian Kelly's already, just throwing his team out there. Just they weren't the team that they thought we were. Danny, what went right? What was the best piece of taking it? I saw you at field level. You were there with your daughter. She was rocking the Cannell jersey. What was it like in Camping World Stadium to watch the Seminoles really arrive in the big stage?
It was awesome, man. It was incredible. Saw Bud, got to hang out with Bud a little bit at the Madison Social tailgate. That was fun. Saw so many Cover 3 shout outs. Love Cover 3. Love you guys. Bud the God. And they're like, Chip, our ACC boy. And then they're like, well, I lost my shirt back in Fornelli this weekend. Like, it was,
come on.
It was awesome.
Nobody said that.
So much fun. I wouldn't make that up, but it was incredible. But before the game there was like, but it's like a cautious confidence because you don't want to be that team that has all this hype and you start like going out there and so it was like a nervous, anxious atmosphere before the game. But my goodness, did they deliver? And I would say the biggest surprise to me was how the defense stepped up in that first half. A couple of goal line stands were phenomenal. Shaky first half for Jordan Travis, but the defense held it.
Dial up, Danny.
Danny, dial up.
Danny, dial up. Oh, no. We're a little bit shaky. Yeah. Oh, no.
It was.
All right, but pick up the baton.
All right, Danny, I got you. No boy squad up here. Yeah, I was sitting next to some of my friends in the stands, and I just said, hey, like on any movie that you might see on like TNT or TBS, LSU should have killed Florida State when they had the chance. I mean, to have 300 yards in the first half and 17 points, is what are the odds that they're really able to continue that in the second half, right? And in the first half, offensively, I thought LSU, they had a good plan to stop FSU's counter game, something we talked about in the big game preview that we do midweek. I thought Wingo did a tremendous job. Like Florida State could not get to that down block that you need the center to hit on counter because they basically took Wingo and did exactly what we said they'd probably do with Mason Smith if he could play, which was just absolutely shoot that gap. And Maurice Smith, is a good player, but Wingo looks great. And Florida State ultimately said, okay, this is what they're doing with this. We see how they're using Harold Perkins to essentially play off ball like they talked about all offseason. And they were going to use him to spy Jordan Travis. And look, from the spy element, I thought he did pretty well. But I think probably at halftime, Norvell and Atkins, the OC for FSU, probably said, okay, so this is what they got. We could change a couple things up here. And they still don't have an answer on the outside for Keon Coleman or Johnny Wilson. I mean, their answer is essentially double Keon, hope Johnny drops the ball, which he did twice in the first half. And he still had 7 catches and drew 2 pass interference penalties for 100 yards. And I mean, he's their number 2 receiver. They are much deeper on the offensive line than they were, a while ago, right? And we talked about this. They don't have a lot of high-end offensive line talent, but they swapped out Robert Scott. They put in Bless Harris at left tackle, right? They took out Demetri Emanuel. They put in Keandre Jones, who they got from Auburn. Like, they have 8 guys on the offensive line they trust, and they essentially played matchups on the offensive line and were able to slow Wingo a little bit. I think they changed how they blocked some of the stuff. They ran a little more stretch. They went to some of the 2-back stuff. They went some same side stuff, back tight end. And I think they got LSU formationed into some looks that they thought they could hit some plays out of. And really, once they started doing that, LSU had a good initial plan. And they really didn't have a counter to Florida State's counter for how they wanted to run counter. And they definitely, right. I've been trying to say it all morning. It's a bit of a tongue twister. So they they had the chalk last, and then LSU basically didn't have answers because LSU's corners are not very good, and Florida State's receivers are really good.
Here's the part of the thing for me. I don't know if LSU's corners are as bad as they looked last night. Like I was talking about this before the show a little bit with Jordan and Chip. Like Deuce Chestnut got roasted all night long. Like anytime I was tweeting, it's like anytime 4 is on 22, the ball is going to 4. And that is precisely
Keon was pointing to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Too little.
Yeah. And that is precisely what the game plan was a lot. Like anytime Jordan Travis looked over and saw that, it's like, okay, that's where we're going with the ball. But like, I think the biggest problem for LSU's defensive backs was like what you just said, Chip, too small. Like they are not big enough to match up with what Florida State had at receiver with, Wilson obviously is a 6'7" giant, but it's not like Keon Coleman is tiny. He's like what, 6'2", 6'3" on himself. So like it was just put the ball in the air, and there's really nothing LSU's defensive backs can do short of breaking the arms and maybe getting a pass interference call along the way. So it was just an impossible matchup for them. It was a very impressive performance for Florida State, and you're right. They did a much better job adjusting at halftime because Wingo was absolutely just having his way in the first half, and pretty much as he went, so went the LSU defense. Like they got off the field when he was getting penetration. And when he wasn't, Florida State was scoring. And in the second half, he was not getting penetration. He was taken out of it by the scheme and what they were doing. And Florida State couldn't be stopped. And then Harold Perkins was, I don't think Perkins played bad. I think you can question LSU's decision and how to use him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things, because I saw it too. It's similar to what I thought I saw Illinois do with Toledo on Saturday night, in that they were using him as a spy on Jordan Travis, because they were we've talked about with Jordan Travis, like he's the Heisman moment guy. He makes crazy things happen when plays break down. He's great off script, and they didn't want Jordan Travis to really get the chance to go off script. And but like you take away a guy's strength to get him to just try. I don't know. I feel like
then he heated up. At one point, he had 11 completions in a row.
Yeah.
He just didn't miss. He got in total rhythm. He said, okay, if you're going to sit back because you're so afraid of what I'm going to do with my legs, I've got these matchup advantages, so let's just start picking you apart. Jaheim Bell also had a big performance right here. I mean, it was stunning to see that in a Florida State LSU matchup, when Florida State had the ball, there were noticeable and significant matchup advantages. And you expect that to be a wash when you've got the talent level of those two programs. And I mean, I want to keep giving flowers to Florida State before we move on, but warning signs for LSU in terms of, what's going to be coming up later in the season.
They were the one reason I really never panicked on it was because Florida State had guys open every drive. And when they failed in the first half, it was generally pass pressure because Wingo was killing it, or Johnny had 2 pretty crucial drops, and Jordan had like 3 really kind of sketchy misses. But they always had guys open consistently. Like that never changed. LSU never covered Florida State really the entire night, and they were just consistently open. And I was like, okay, like what are the odds that Jordan just continues to miss these guys, and that Wilson is going to drop every ball? Like pretty low, because they're getting open pretty consistently.
I think DK versus the hotel Wi-Fi. I think I might have won. I'm not
made
sure
halftime
yet,
adjustments, dude.
But yeah, halftime adjustments. Tom, you
counter
said
to the
Keon
counter.
Coleman 6'2" or 6'3". Don't short. That dude is all of 6'4". Like
Yeah.
I was doubting the size too. I mean, there is a reason Kuiper moved him up to number 2, and I think he's entrenched himself in that spot right now. Like, good luck trying to unseat him from there. He's gonna be right on Marvin Harrison Jr.'s heels. The other thing is too, this is where I think Jordan Travis, the veteran presence and leadership, kind of comes to the forefront, and Jared Verse and everybody, all the veterans, like the experience on this team, because it was not a good first half. Like Bud mentioned, the 2 or 3 shaky decisions. I thought the one where he forced the screen pass because he eluded pressure, I thought that was a really good defensive play. It was an ill-advised pass, but like the guy made a pretty good play.
Yeah.
The third down coming out where he tried that and he just heaved it right over the middle.
Oh, the jump
that
pass?
was the jump, whatever that was, that's one that'll get you fired or get you benched in a lot of circumstances. And I was wondering, I'm like, his confidence has to be shaken after that one. Defense gives up the big 3rd and long in like 30 seconds left, allows them, but they get the stop. They get a field goal. They go into halftime. They settle down. That to me is what like really makes this team potentially dangerous, is the leadership. They don't get frazzled. They didn't get flustered. The other thing is too, like if they would have come out and executed, like Bud said, I mean, it could have been like 49-7. Like if Johnny Wilson catches some of those, the refs with the roughing the passer, and those were kind of joke calls. I mean, I don't know, maybe it was the home crowd, but they looked awful on.
They weren't
that. You thought they hit
calls.
him? You thought Jaden Daniels? You thought they hit him on the first one?
I hate the rules that they enforce, but I think by the rules they were pretty solid calls. My
11-year-old daughter said no way they should have called a flag. She was right there. So, oh no,
he knows ball. All right, a couple stats here. LSU before garbage time, right? So like the final 2 minutes.
Well, yeah, they had that 175-yard touchdown. And that was the thing is we were almost cruising towards a second half like shutout with no drives of longer than 40 yards for this LSU offense. They couldn't run the ball. They couldn't move the ball. It was problematic for the Tigers once Florida State's defense started playing. It was just everything was spinning out of control for LSU in the second half.
Jaden Daniels 0 of 3 before garbage time on passes that went further than 15 yards in the air. Jordan Travis 4 of 6 points in the red zone. LSU 3.2 per trip. Florida State like 6.
Which means we almost scored a touchdown every single time. It was the one field goal early in the third.
Yeah,
quarter,
it was they like doubled them up.
Yeah,
the thing is, I think what you saw was a team that didn't make a ton of mental mistakes, right? Like Neighbors got his all the time. They targeted him a lot, but you weren't
a lot too.
Yeah, right. And you weren't blowing coverages deep. Like you saw it, like they made LSU earn almost everything. And they stayed in the fight by keeping the ball in front of them. It gives you a chance to have some goal line stands. Florida State was much better in short yardage in this game. Really kind of in those situations, kind of pushed LSU around, which that part did surprise me.
Me too.
They were the better like short yardage team. That was interesting. Offensive line change. I'm just going through my notes here. Yeah, I mean 16 catches, 226 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 pass interferences drawn.
Is that between the two? Is that
between
Coleman?
the two?
Yeah, between the two. But Bell had a good game too. I mean, this is just like sky's the limit, man. Like this Florida State team's going to play at Clemson, and we don't know what Clemson's going to look like. We're going to find out Monday night. But talk about some real intrigue, like to be able to get these 2 games back to back, both in a big national spotlight. We'll see what the ACC title picture is looking like once we get to see the Tigers. But Florida State, there is the Pitt game late might scare you.
Road, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But this is a Florida State team that, like we always said, can win every single game on its schedule. But you feel a lot better about where Florida State sits in terms of trying to get to 11-1, 12-0, playing for an ACC championship on that first Saturday in December.
I will say, like we still have to see Clemson tonight, but my takeaway from the first weekend is while the bottom of the league is still kind of like the 3 teams that we think are supposed to be good all looked the part. Like North Carolina's win over South Carolina. We talked about it on Saturday night. It's not just that they won the game. It's that they were kind of beating South Carolina up, which we're not used to seeing from that team. So if Clemson goes out and takes care of business tonight, like we are looking at an ACC this year possibly that could be really fun at the top to follow.
Also,
Miami look good.
Yeah, like they didn't.
Yeah, but
they didn't look
Miami,
amazing.
Ohio, so.
But at least they took care of business.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
So basically, who's ready for Florida State, Colorado in the Natty?
Oh,
dude,
we ready or what?
That would be like 105 to 40.
If Florida State and
Colorado had 0 tackles for loss on 80 TCU snaps.
If those 2 meet in the national title game, high school recruiting will be finished. It will just be the transfer portal from now on.
Did you see who was in the stands watching Keon Coleman?
who?
Mel Tucker?
Number 1 receiver recruit, Jeremiah Smith.
Okay.
From Chaminade, he was tweeting about Keon Coleman.
You know who else was? I saw a lot of NFL scouts in that sideline last night too.
Yeah, I think I saw Darnell. Did you see Darnell down there? Dockett?
Yeah, he was there. There was a ton of dudes.
He was coaching up Wilson and Verse on the sideline.
Oh yeah.
Is that legal?
Well, maybe just telling him what he did.
No.
Hey,
Wait a minute.
Back up, bud.
Wait
No,
a
he was just
minute.
saying hi.
Somebody get the NCAA on the phone.